Welcome to Megabucks Radio. Conversations with successful entrepreneurs, sharing their tips and strategies for success. Real-world ideas that can put megabucks in your bank account. Here's your host, Nina Hirschberger.
Welcome to today's show. This is Nina Hirschberger, your host. And today I have with me Michael McLean. Michael bought, about 19 years ago, he bought his father's insurance agency up in Canada. His dad had run it for 30 years. And Michael, when you bought it, I know you had been into marketing at the time, but what did you do? Triple that business within, about 3 years based on the marketing that you were doing?
Yeah, we grew the business from $3.4 million in premium volume. I used to sell home and car insurance, and we were able to 3x the size of the business in 36 short months, basically with an aggressive, almost a maverick renegade aggressive type of marketing where people would phone into the agency and we would write the business, over the internet and 100% of it by phone. So we had our agency, over 300 calls per day. We were answering the phones 24 hours a day, but we transitioned from a regular insurance agency into a marketing juggernaut, and that's the way we were able to do it. So about 3 times the size in the first 36 months.
So the reason I asked Michael to be on today's show, I've known him for years. I've watched him. I know the skill that he has. And at that time, he had 23 employees. About 4 years ago, he sold the agency, but he still has employees. And so the topic we're going to talk about today, because he did things so differently, so unusual, which in today's market is even better to do, to find good employees, what to do to keep them, and how to keep them motivated. So, Michael, welcome to today's show.
Thank you, Nina. I'm glad to always talk marketing, business, and employees.
Yeah. All right, let's start out with attracting applicants. Tell us what it was you did.
Well, for us to be able to scale our business the way we were wanting to scale it through our marketing, I knew that my number one challenge was always going to be attracting the right type of team member, employee, and then keeping that person. So the number one expense you have in business is staff. And when I say expense, it costs a lot of money to attract the right person. It costs a lot of money to train the right person. And it costs a lot of money when the person doesn't stay with you. So retention was a big focus of ours. But no different than getting the phones to ring for me to quote an auto policy or a home policy. I built a funnel to attract high-quality employees. And what I mean by funnel is an attraction system, a systematic system that worked 365 days a year to make sure we had resumes coming into our office on a daily basis, and they would trickle in like a faucet would trickle, like 2 a day, 3 a day, and this way we were never without good people. We were never in a situation where somebody gave their resignation and moved on to a different job where we didn't have somebody else in the pipeline. And so that was the secret to our success. And you have to remember, we grew, when I started with my dad, we had 3 employees. After 36 months, we had around 17 employees, and then after 5 years, we were up to our maximum, which you said is 23 people. So that's a lot of hiring and training. And the way we did it was with what I called my hiring system, and that's exactly what it was. We set it, we forgot about it, and we just had amazing people, prospects, trickling into our pipeline every single day for the 15 years that I was in the insurance business.
Okay, so let's go into the details because I know I've seen some of it. So tell me what that system looks like, starting with the step number 1.
Well, you know what, we knew we were in I asked myself, okay, what business am I in? I'm in the people business. I'm in the relationship business, and that includes attracting employees. So we took our approach and we said, okay, every single thing that leaves our agency, whether it's an envelope sending somebody their renewal, whether it's a thank you card, whether it's an email, we did a lot of faxing in those days, whatever it is, a social media post, let's have something on there saying we're interested in attracting and training great people. So we were in the marketing business to hire to qualified people. So it didn't matter whether it was our newsletter that went out every month, Nina. It didn't matter if we had a tagline on everybody's email. So, you know, we had 10 staff members at the time, and each person that they send up hundreds and thousands of emails in a month or in a year. We were always driving people to a help wanted video page, and that was just me. One day I shot a 2 or 3 minute video, and it drove them to a video page. It was just me standing there telling them about our company, McLean Insurance. And that page did two things. That video page did two things. It got rid of 90% of the people that we did not want to be, we just didn't want. They couldn't follow directions, or they weren't the right fit, whatever it was. And then it attracted that real outstanding 5% of people, and those are the 2 or 3 that would trickle in each and every day. So that was just a simple video page. Also, I had copy on that page which said, okay, this is exactly what this job is about. Here's exactly what we're looking for. And most importantly, Nina, I had on there always what we did not want. So once again, we're talking to the absolute ideal prospect. This is what we need to do this job. And then here was the test, and this is what saved me the most time and money, is everybody that went to the website. First of all, they had to go to the website. They had to send us a package by FedEx. They had to send it to me personally to a specific address, and they had to write a letter about, and it changed up, but I would have them actually sit down and write a letter about who their personal mentor or hero was, and then I also have them write a letter about why they thought they were the perfect candidate to work at our office. So it was amazing. When these packages would arrive each and every day in my office, almost 85% of the packages were incomplete, which meant maybe the resume was there, but then the letters weren't there. Or maybe they shipped it to the wrong address, or maybe they sent it to the wrong person in the office. So right then and there, I was working with only 15% of the candidates. And those are the people, Nina, that showed me that they could follow direction. They wanted the job. It was more than just clicking on a website. They took the time to sit down and write a couple of letters to me. And this told me as much about these people as any interview. So I didn't have to waste time with 85% of the people who were unable to follow directions. So, and that's basically how our funnel worked. Now, the 15% that did what they were told, they followed direction. I would interview those people. My manager would interview those people. And quite often we had 2 or 3 outstanding people, battling, really competing for only 1 or 2 jobs. So it was a really nice feeling to always have that funnel full of people that could do a really good job for us.
So, Michael, let me ask you this. I mean, by this time, did they know how much money they were going to make, what the benefits were? Had you gone through any of that yet by this time?
Well, everything was on the web page. So in other words, this is exactly how much you're going to make the first 30 days. This is exactly how much you're going to make after 90 days. You're going to be on probation for 3 months. These are the hours. This is how much vacation time. This is how you're expected to dress. This everything about our culture. Basically, the page was, okay, this is who we are. And this is either for you or it's not for you. So that was a big thing. But here's the thing that I did that nobody else in the entire industry did, is I refused to hire anyone with insurance experience. And I learned this lesson, expensive lesson, the first couple of years in the business. We would put an ad in the newspaper, we'd put an ad on our Facebook page, and we'd get all the same types of resumes. In other words, the person who's been working for our competition for the last 5 or 10 years, and they bring all their bad habits and all their bad attitudes and all this stuff. And then finally, after doing this for a couple of years and wasting all that time and money, I said to myself, there has to be a better way to attract high-quality people. So I put on my marketing hat and said, of course there is. It's as simple as marketing, direct response. And that's what the funnel was able to create. Now, a lot of people said, this is insane. I mean, you bring people in and you train them, and we train them our way. So I was dealing, Nina, with people that were looking to start a new career. They were excited about our culture, but they also were going to be trained our way with our systems and procedures. So I had 23 people on my team who had been trained personally by myself and my staff. We did things a certain way, much different than most other insurance agencies, and we had a real good, solid team culture because these people had never worked in the industry before. And then I would take them after we had trained them for the first 12 months to 6 months, and then we would transition them into the right seat on the bus. In other words, is this a salesperson? Do they have a sales personality? Or are they a service person? Are they a receptionist type of person? And just like my father trained me in the first 12 months that I was in the agency, they learn every job from the front door to the back door. I learned how to answer the phones. I learned how to turn on the alarm at night. I learned how to write handwritten letters. I learned absolutely everything is systematized. And this is what these prospects and employees came through. And the great thing is that after 30 days, you really know whether you have a person that's going to work out or not. So we weren't investing all this time and money in somebody we weren't sure of. And that was the funnel that we used, and that was my secret weapon, hiring people. And I used to put that right in the ad, Nina, where I'd say, no insurance experience required. And just amazing. We had people that had worked in dentist's office. We had people that worked in doctor's offices. We had people that worked in law offices. We had people that worked on farms and in the hospitality industry. We had all these amazing prospects coming from outside of the insurance industry, and then we would train them our way.
What do you think was in that ad, though, that drew them? What was it about your culture that they really liked?
I think the thing that most people spoke about, and we questioned them when we interviewed them, was how straightforward and completely different our advertisements were. So I called out clearly to exactly the type of person that I wanted. And what I mean is, you know, if you look at one of our ads, it was the complete polar opposite of what somebody else would put in. It was like, here's what we're looking for. We're going to train you. We're going to pay for your training. This is how much money you're going to make. This is how much, what your benefits. This is how far you can advance, all that kind of stuff. And you have to remember, we already had a great reputation in and around our community for all of the marketing that we did. So these are people that had been getting our flyers, our postcards. They had seen our social media. I did extensive TV ads. I was in their mailbox. So these people already had a very good understanding that we were an aggressive marketing agency. And that's kind of what made us stick out. The other thing is, when you have people coming from a completely different industry, you get to pick the best of the best. You're not just enclosed in a tiny box. And it's funny, with all the people that we hired over the years, my two best industries that we brought our very best people from was, number one was the hospitality industry. I hired, like, some of our most amazing people came from the restaurant and bar industry. And secondly, we hired a whole bunch of amazing people from the farming industry, of all things. We live in rural, and there's lots of farms. So the two common denominators there, Nina, were work ethic and attitude. Because people who are used to getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and working 12 hours a day, like on a farm, you can see where 9 to 5 is a piece of cake. And they also came with that incredible attitude of putting in an honest day's work. The same for the hospitality industry. Anybody that's been a bartender or a waiter or a waitress understands that your attitude and your work ethic have a lot to do with, you're a commissioned salesperson. Basically, you're working for tips. So those were the two industries that we targeted, where we got some of our very, very best people that we eventually trained into some of our leaders.
Knowing you and seeing some of the things you've done in the past, I would say they also understood that you were a winning company. People want to be associated with winners.
Well, my background is in professional sports, so when I graduated from college, I went right into pro hockey. I coached for 2.5 years in pro. I've owned my own team in junior, so I come from high-level sports, first as a player and secondly as a head coach. So I kind of said, okay, I'm going in the insurance business. I'd been in the hockey business. I own my own team. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go join my dad, but I'm going to bring the attributes that I learned in sports, which is discipline, mental toughness, goal setting, competition, all that great stuff that we all know about. And I said, I'm going to bring that to a very stale, dull, and kind of boring industry, the insurance industry. And I'm not going to do things just the way things are done. I'm going to bring that with me. And I think that was a big part of our hiring practice, is people say, it's teamwork and all this stuff, but most cultures don't have any teamwork whatsoever. So that's what we built it. We built our agency almost like a football team or a baseball team or a tennis team. And we hired, Nina, a lot of people that were former athletes themselves. And what are you getting in those situations? You're getting a person that understands competition. They understand, how to self-improvement, self-awareness, mental toughness, all these great things. So, yeah, that was a big attraction for most people, is because they said, I want to work for a company that's exciting, that's progressive, that's growing. And I always said in my ads, I said, listen, if you're going to work here and you're going to work for me, you are going to run through your day. You're not going to sit and read magazines. You're not going to surf the internet. You're not going to shop on Amazon. We bust our rears in here, and the phone never stops ringing, and we're selling. And what does that attract? That attracts the best of the best always.
Yeah, because they want that kind of thing. So let's segue into that culture then, because I know once you got them in there, you actually did things to really reward those employees. So talk about that for a minute.
Well, the secret for us with people complicate reward programs. Even the employee doesn't understand them. They're like, I don't understand when I get this or don't get that or whatever. But what I did, the number one thing in sport to improve personal performance is public recognition. And that's a huge one, and most businesses never even talk about it. So I had 4 guys that sold insurance day in and day out. I would make the phone ring, and they would sell. Well, we really took our game to the next level, as did those 4 salespeople, when I would make the sales public every single day by email. So you were in first or you were in fourth. And that's that competition where nobody wants to be in last place. So we always had this friendly competition inside the agency. I did the same for our service reps. These were people who were supposed to be, I said, okay, I want to capture everybody's cell phone number. I want to capture everybody's email and their birth date. So we would have internal competitions where I'd say, okay, I'm going to give you $1 for every birth date that you capture, email, whatever. But then I'd also have a chart up in the kitchen and also in our workroom where it showed the standings of our employees. And here's the funny thing, because some people say, well, I'm not a competitor and that doesn't motivate me. In my 15 years involved in our family business, we never had a salesperson or a service person ever finish last 2 months in a row. So people are driven by public recognition, both good and bad, And we made it fun. Like, not only were these people getting some money to be doing these behaviors that I wanted, but also the friendly competition of, I'm in second place. I got 2 more days to capture, 15 more emails and I'll be number 1. And then we made a big deal about winning, whether it was, buying dinner certificates, pizza. We had a huge wheel that we spun. And it was funny because I'm not a meetings guy. I don't like meetings at all. I think that they're the biggest waste of time. We would meet as a group once or twice a month. The only meetings I ever held were I call them stand-up meetings, where everybody would come into the conference room and I would address the team for less than 2 or 3 minutes. This is what we did great. Give a lot of public recognition. If somebody had a great month, we would let them know. And then everybody that had achieved their goals for the month would get cash bonuses, real hard, cold, hard cash. People who didn't. And then everybody would spin the wheel. And on that wheel, as you've seen in the past, there's all kinds of really great things like a day off or $500 cash or fill your car with gasoline, all that kind of stuff. But once again, none of this stuff was freebies. They had to earn all these opportunities.
Yeah, so talk about that a minute. So you actually, you talked about goals a minute ago. So tell me what kind of goals you set for those people.
Well, minimum goals. So none of this kicked in. There was no commission inside our building. There was no bonuses until everybody reached a certain point. So I wanted 9 of people pushing hard to the last day of the month. None of this sitting around and I've made my mark and I can take the last week off. None of that stuff. We had our people pushing for all 31 days in a month. And the way we did that is we had minimum standards. So a salesperson, as an example, their minimum standard would be, okay, you have to write $500,000 in premium before you're eligible for the 25% commission. And I kept everything, as I said earlier, really, really simple so that we had buy-in and people understood. And here's the way I used to tell my team, the sales guys as an example. For every $1 you bring in, I'm going to hand you back a quarter for as long as you live here. So if you bring in $1 into this business, I'm going to give you 25 cents back every time. So that was our commission structure. Like, it was so simple. It was the same for the service team. I said, listen, I know you guys don't spend a lot of time selling, but when they were servicing those clients, they would then sell another piece of business, and I'd give them 25 points or 25% of everything they did there. I did the same with email captures and cell phone captures, where I said, I'll pay you $1 for each of these. Simple as that. So then it's crystal clear. They know exactly. And then at the end of the month, I would just walk around up at our meeting, and I would hand, somebody would get a check for $400 and some dollars. Somebody would get a check for $117. Somebody might get a check for $1,000. It all depended on how much of that stuff that they achieved. So everybody had their base salary, but they could easily make themselves another $20,000 in our agency by just doing the behaviors that we were asking them to do in the first place.
I remember one of the behaviors you really wanted was thank you notes. Didn't you have they had to send out so many thank you notes a week?
Five per day. So the power of a thank you note, and these were like a wedding invitation where the person gets it in the mail, it's handwritten, their name's on it, there's a live stamp. And so what I would say, when we had 10 employees, we started doing this, and we did it right up to the day that I sold the business, is every employee had to send out 5 thank you cards. Okay, and we did this per day. So think of those multipliers. So you have a person working 5 days a week, you have 23 people, and they're all sending out 25 thank you cards per week. Well, it's not long until you've sent a handwritten thank you card to thousands and thousands of your valuable customers and clients over the course of a year. And how much time did that add? It added maybe half an hour of total work. But also look at the power of having, everybody doing that one thing. When they did that, they got rewarded, and I kind of forget what we even did, but that was like something they got to spin the wheel or whatever it was. And once again, it was just a matter of me deciding what are the behaviors that I need for us to be successful. and then taking these and incentivizing them and making sure that the staff are making them happen every single day.
Yeah, I mean, is that one of the cultural things that you don't see very often in any business? First of all, they don't think about what behaviors do I want. Let me say, so somebody would say to you, Michael, 23 times 5 a day, that's, times however much per stamp, and then the envelope and all the time. And wow, that's a lot of money. We can't afford that.
Well, the thing is, when I first started in business, I always kept a thing of thank you cards on the table at home when I was watching Sports Center or what. And I got into the habit when I was in business, when I was really young, was sending 3, 4, 5 cards a day. I can say 20 years later that's probably the most profitable activity that I did personally as a business operator. And it was so profitable, and in terms of retention and thanking people and referrals and all this stuff, that's why I decided then to get my entire team into it, because I realized, Nina, this is probably the most profitable thing I do. And once again, I would write a handful of cards in 10 minutes watching Sports Center some night. But I got into that discipline of sending those thank you cards out. It could be to a staff member. It could have been to, somebody at the Rotary Club. It could have been somebody who did a favor for us that day. It could have been a client. Maybe it was a high-end prospect that we had been given the opportunity to quote their insurance. But that was my greatest ROI. There was no better return on investment in all of our marketing than sending out those handwritten thank you cards.
Okay, so fast forward. It's now 4 years later. You sold the agency. We're now in what I kind of call a post-COVID kind of community. Here in the United States, at least, a lot of employees have been, still getting their unemployment, and then they're getting an additional $300 a week. So businesses are having a tough time even trying to get anybody to apply. Even if they say they're going to come in for an interview and you have 20 that say they're coming in, you might have none show up. Do you think it's any different these days, Michael, than it was 4 years ago?
Well, I think it's more of a challenge, and I think that whenever there's a challenge, you have to do things completely the opposite of the way that's failing for other people. So, in my business, as an example, like I have 2 full-time employees. If I'm looking to hire a person tomorrow, I want to show up, Nina, where nobody else is. So I want to be offline as much as possible. So, as an example, everybody puts their resumes in the same places in these online places, and you get everybody. You'll get 300 applicants. Well, there's no filtering. You have no clue what you're getting, and most of the people don't even remember applying. So I think it's more important than ever to do it exactly the opposite that every other business is doing it, and I just explained how we did it that way, but also to show up in places where nobody would even think about it. So I had this habit always of being, my antenna was always up and is to this day, looking for great people. That's my coaching. That's in my head. It'll never change. So when I'm having lunch at the bistro, or if I'm at McDonald's, or if I'm at the baseball, it makes no difference. I'm always looking for great people. And that's how I've attracted the 2 superstars that I have working for me right now. One of them is a former player, and one of them is a person who I ran into where she was working as a waitress. So I think that more than ever, we have to have our antenna up to see great people. It might be somebody that's working in your dentist office. Who knows? But I always say to these people, I always used to give them my card and say, hey, if you're ever looking for a career change, give me a call. And you would be shocked, Nina, at the number of people that we hired from just simple things like that, like somebody who's just an amazing bartender, or somebody who, was cleaning my vehicle. And I would always leave them my card and say, listen, I think you do a fantastic job. If you're ever interested in getting into the insurance business, please give me a call. So I was always recruiting, and I think that that's more important for today than ever before. The other thing that I mentioned were just little things that are leaving your office, like instead of depending on help wanted ads, just always be recruiting, whether it's when you send an email or a text or whatever, that you have some sort of link or video or invitation that says, hey, we're hiring. And that way you're never in a tough spot where you don't have a funnel full of people. And the other thing I was always taught was show up, where nobody else expects you. In other words, what the question I would ask myself is, where can I look for great people where other businesses would never even think of being? And, that could be anything. That could be at the high school baseball stadium. That could be, through the Rotary Club, all kinds of different things. But that was what we did. We just never, ever, ever stopped recruiting great people.
So if you handed him a card and said, if you're looking to change your career, give me a call, and you're doing that now, would you put them through a funnel still, or would you just take a phone call from them? How would that work?
Well, in those cases, because I got to evaluate them, when they weren't, that's the greatest thing about that is you get to evaluate a person when it's almost like they're giving you a job interview and they don't even know it. In other words, if I'm sitting there and I have this fantastic waitress that is, has been doing an amazing job, that's a person. The reason I gave them the card is because I already know that this is the type of person that we would love to have in our company. So in that particular case, of course, I would have that person in. I would have them. I'd have them complete the letters and things for me, but I would have them in Nina, and we'd talk, and I'd tell them why I was interested in them in the first place. And then by that time, of course, they're always looking for a different career. But what that did is that planted the seed in their head that, someday, they maybe want to get in another business. So that's kind of a really great trick because, boy, you're seeing a person as they really are because their guard is down. They're working for somebody else. But whenever you run into that wow service, I used to always make a note of it and always say, by the way, if you ever want to change careers or anything, please give me a call.
It's interesting. A few weeks ago, I was in Dallas, and I was with a guy who owns an insurance company, and he told the story about during COVID, where there's very high-end restaurant. I mean, we're talking your meal will cost $150. And, of course, they were kind of shut down. And so there was one waiter in that restaurant who decided that he wanted to work for this insurance guy. So he literally went out, studied, and got his insurance license before he even made contact with them. And that guy has turned out to be his number one salesperson ever in all of the agencies he's had. So, yeah, what you're saying is very, very smart. Michael, I'm looking at the clock, and as always, talking with you is always such a pleasure, and it goes so quick. I just want to ask, is there anything else that I should have asked that maybe I didn't ask that somebody listening to this who is struggling right now could benefit from, or did we cover it all?
Well, I think the big thing is you almost have to have a sports mentality where you're always recruiting, and your number one problem or challenge in your business is always going to be employees unless you fix that challenge with an attraction funnel. And that's what you and I have been talking about for the last little while is just having your antenna out there, constantly be looking for good people, constantly be asking for good people. Age is not a factor. You have it's like some of our best people were people that were semi-retired and were looking for something else to do. Some of our best people came directly out of college. But don't ever buy into the fact that it's hard to find good people, because it's hard to find good people if you're just going out and you're not putting any effort into it and you're just expecting great people to show up at your doorstep. It doesn't work like that. It's no different than any other part of your business. It needs to be systematized. It needs to be prioritized, and you have to repel 85% of the people that are not going to fit in and attract that 15% that you can train and work for yourself. And that there's so many good people out there. It's just a matter of having the system that attracts them. And just remember, it's like Nick Saban, head coach of Alabama, always says is, mediocre people don't like high achievers, And high achievers don't like mediocre people. So people talk about team chemistry in business all the time, and they don't know what they're talking about. I've been coaching pro and amateur for years, and you know the secret to a winning culture with great people is hiring exceptional people, no exceptions. And like Nick Saban says, that makes sense. You can't have 5 mediocre people and 5 exceptional people on your team because they're not going to get along. The secret is to have that standard where we're only going to hire the best. And when I say the best, I mean the person who's got the great work ethic and the great attitude that we can train. And that's always been the secret to our good cultures is we constantly recruit outstanding people. Like you know, Nina, I didn't care whether they knew an insurance policy from a football. I was going to train them our way, so that part of it was easy. Hire great people that have great attitudes, who appreciate hard work, and the rest is much, much simpler.
That's great advice. So, Michael, I know you're transitioning into a new part of your life. If somebody listening to this says, man, this is a guy I really want to hang out with, and I know you're putting together a millionaire mastermind group. If they qualify, and if they're one of those winners and one of those, is it something that they can get a hold of you and see what you're doing as far as that goes?
Yeah, they can contact me and watch a short webinar that will, define whether it's what they want to do. It's badassbusinessmen.com, badassbusinessmen.com. And the title of my business is self-explanatory. I work with top 1% businessmen. And these are people that are already some of the best, and they're looking to get 1% better every day in all areas of their life, whether it's business, marketing, marriage, health, whatever. And they can go to badassbusinessmen.com, and they can watch a 20-minute instructional video that I have that explains what my membership is all about. And that's basically who I work with. I work with the top 5% that want to be the top 1%. In other words, they want to be the top earners, they want to be the top fathers, they want to be the best grandfathers they can be, get in the best physical shape, mental, spiritual, all that kind of stuff, and we have a lot of fun with it. So if anybody's interested in more information, it's badassbusinessmen.com. Check out the webinar. Put in your email, and you'll actually be able to see a lot of the recruiting that we do with our own business right now.
Sounds good. Well, Michael, thank you so much. I know you're a busy guy, and to take this time has really been an honor. So I appreciate you being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome, Nina. It's always a pleasure to speak with a fellow serial entrepreneur.
Yeah. So this is Nina Hirschberger. Until next time, I'm going to challenge every single one of you to go out and create your funnel to hire those very best employees.
Thank you for listening to Megabucks Radio with Nina Hirschberger. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or to listen to past episodes, visit megabucksradio.com.